Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is going to be my reading wrap up for the month of February 2024. In February, I read 6 books for a total of 2,276 pages and an average star rating of 3.7 out of 5. Now, I did do things slightly differently this month because usually when I'm determining how many pages I read per month, I only count books that I've finished. So like if I start a book in February, but I don't finish it until March, I just count those pages for March, just to make it easier on myself. But this month I decided not to do that because I have read 770 pages of The Count of Monte Cristo. And I feel like better to count those pages for the month that I actually read them because I want to have a somewhat accurate statistics for each reading month, and just including all 1,200 something pages in March would kind of throw it off a little bit, you know? So I did count 770 pages of The Count for this month, and I will talk a little bit about my thoughts so far at the end of this wrap up, so stay tuned. But let's get right into it. First, in February, I read 2 arcs. I will try to review these briefly and link the video where I review each book in more depth if you want more thoughts. The first of the 2 arcs that I read was Murder by Lamplight by Patrice McDonough. This just came out on February 20th. Thank you so much to publisher Kensington Books for giving me a copy via NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This is a historical murder mystery set in Victorian London in around the 1860s, I believe. Our main character is Dr. Julia Lewis. She has recently returned to London from America, where she went abroad to study medicine. Her grandfather is also a doctor. One day, Detective Inspector Richard Tennant of Scotland Yard calls Julia's grandfather to come inspect a body, but is very surprised when he ends up getting Julia instead. They believe that this murdered man may be just one in a string of killings committed by a serial killer, and when Richard and Julia both end up receiving taunting messages from the killer, they tentatively agree to work together to unmask the villain before he can kill more people. I did quite enjoy this book. I mean, I don't think it necessarily reinvented the wheel in any way, but if you're someone who really loves historical murder mysteries, I do think this book is worth checking out. I said in my review that the 2 main characters and their interactions gave me like season 1 Miss Scarlet and the Duke vibes. They gave me season 1 Will Liza vibes, but the setting is predominantly in the East End of London, so it has a grittier tone, sort of more in line with something like Ripper Street. So I feel like if you combined those 2 TV shows together, you would get this book. I do want to warn you that the murders in this book are fairly graphic and disturbing, which I personally was not expecting. Like, I knew it was going to be a little darker due to the serial killer aspect, but these murders are pretty disgusting, and I feel like if you are maybe a bit squeamish, like, I don't know if this is the book for you. I do think this book reminded me of things that I had read or watched before, but I did enjoy myself while I was reading it. I liked the 2 main characters and their interactions. I would like to see how their professional and personal relationship could change in future books. And I was satisfied with how the murder mystery was resolved. The other arc that I read in February was The Rumor Game by Thomas Mullen. I gave this 3 stars. Thank you so much to Minotaur Books for gifting me my copy via NetGalley. This book was published on February 27th. This book is a World War II era historical mystery thriller, predominantly following 2 characters named Devin and Anne. This book is set in Boston, where Devin works for the FBI. And Anne is a reporter who runs a column called The Rumor Clinic. As part of his job with the FBI, Devin is investigating the murder of a factory worker who it is believed may have possibly been targeted due to being Jewish. Meanwhile, Anne, for her column, is researching anti-Semitic propaganda. Her boss has told her not to look into it. He wants her to focus on more so fluff pieces for the newspaper, but Anne really wants to be taken seriously as a reporter and investigate issues that matter to her. Devin and Anne end up crossing paths, and they realize that his murder investigation and her article may actually be linked. I gave this book 3 stars. However, I do encourage you to read it if it sounds interesting to you. I think part of the reason I didn't give this book a higher rating is just due to my subjective reading preferences. I'm also not big on World War II era books, so it may just not be my favorite time period. What I liked about this book is I really liked Anne as a main character. I enjoyed her, and I think it's very clear that Thomas Mullen knows a lot about this time period, but it never comes across like he's info dumping. I personally didn't really like Devin that much. He is, let's just say, a little bit of a playboy, and when we first meet him and we're getting his thoughts, I didn't really like him at the beginning based off of some of the things that he was thinking about his life choices. And though he does reconsider his life choices as the book goes on, I got off on the wrong foot with him, and I was just never able to fully invest in his character like I did with Anne. But I do think if this book sounds like something you might enjoy, check it out. Next, I'm going to discuss the 3 books that I read for my recent reading vlog, where I read 3 books published in 1999, the year that I was born. This was a themed reading vlog that I did to basically like celebrate my 25th birthday. So I will link that vlog in the card. I had a lot of fun with it. Go check it out if you're interested. The first book that I read for that vlog was The Unexpected Guest by Charles Osborne, which is based off a stage play by Agatha Christie. I gave this 4 stars. So the basic premise of this book is it's set in this remote area of Wales. And at the beginning of the book, this man comes up to this house out in the middle of nowhere. He says, "Hey, I just drove my car into a ditch with all this fog. I couldn't see. My car is wrecked. I'm just here to like use your telephone, or can I stay here for the night?" But when he enters the study, he finds this woman named Laura Warwick standing over the body of her dead husband holding a gun. She says that she just murdered her husband, but did she actually do it? Or is there more going on here? I gave this book 4 stars because I did have fun with it overall. It was nice and short. I went through it very quickly, and it was a fast, easy read. One of my concerns when I first picked this up is I was worried, because I'm such a fan of Agatha Christie, I was worried, like, I don't know how I feel about reading a novelization of one of her plays. Is it going to be as good as, like, Agatha Christie books are? And it does seem like Charles Osborne was very faithful to the original script. He really didn't seem to add all of that much, and that was both a good thing and a bad thing. I think it was good because obviously I respect Agatha Christie and I want, the person adapting her play to be true to her vision, but it also was missing some of the qualities you see in a novel. For instance, you really never access any of the characters' internal thoughts or get to know them on that deeper level. I also felt like the final reveal at the very end of the book was very obvious. I saw it coming a mile away, so I was not surprised at all that it went in that direction. But, I still gave this 4 stars. Like, if you just want a quick murder mystery read, it's worth checking out. I enjoyed it for what it was. Next, for that reading like it's 1999 vlog, I read Stardust by Neil Gaiman, which I also gave 4 stars. This is a fairy tale-like fantasy novel, and we're following this young man named Tristram Thorn, and he is living in this English village called Wall, I believe in the 1800s, and this book is set in a universe where there is both a human world and then also a magical world. Tristram is in love with this young woman in his village, and one night they see a falling star. The young woman says to Tristram, "If you go get that falling star for me and bring it back here, I'll give you anything you want," including her hand in marriage. So Tristram goes on a journey out of his village and into the magical realm to find this fallen star. But when he discovers the star, he finds out that the star is actually a woman. This book might sound familiar to you because it is the inspiration for the film Stardust, starring Claire Danes, though there are differences between the book and the movie. I enjoyed this. I actually listened to it as an audiobook, which was a really fun experience. I've only ever read 2 Neil Gaiman books, and both of them I read as audiobooks. But I enjoyed this. I liked the fairy tale quality of it, and I just thought it was an enjoyable read. There were some aspects of the book that I liked better than the movie, and the book ends on a very different note because the film Stardust has a classic Hollywood happy ending, and the ending of this book is a little more bittersweet. I don't really have much more to say about this. I enjoyed it, and if you think there are some other Neil Gaiman books that I should check out in the future, let me know in the comment section. Then the final book that I read for that reading like it's 1999 vlog was Murder on Astor Place, the first Gaslight mystery by Victoria Thompson. This is the first in a long-running historical mystery series with 20+ books and counting, set in, I think, the 1890s in New York. I'm not actually sure if it ever said in the book what year it was supposed to be, but it's sometime around the 1890s, late Gilded Age, approaching the turn of the century. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I do think I would like to read the sequel, but I was not totally enamored with this book at first. This is a book that I've been wanting to check out because when I first got into historical mysteries, I was looking all over YouTube for recommendations, and this is a series that I saw people constantly recommend. So this series, like I said, is set in New York, and it follows our 2 main characters, Sarah Brandt, who is a midwife, and Frank Malloy, who is a sergeant with the NYPD. In this first book, Sarah is going to a boarding house to visit a patient of hers who has just had a baby, but when she arrives at the boarding house, she discovers that a teenage girl who was also staying at the boarding house has just been murdered. This teenage girl actually ends up being a relative of this family Sarah used to know, so she gets interested in the investigation, wants to figure out what happened to this girl. Frank, who is the detective on the case, is not initially that happy that this woman is interfering with his investigation, but the 2 of them end up helping each other as they try to find the murderer. I was slightly disappointed by this book just because so many people mention it as being one of their favorite historical mysteries of all time. I didn't really love it at first because, one, I really did not like Frank's character at the beginning. Once I learned more about him and his motivations, I did come around and end up liking him in the end. But in the beginning, not knowing his backstory, I really did not like him because he had a lot of sexist thoughts regarding Sarah, which, I mean, honestly, I'm sure most, late 1800s police officers, if some woman started getting involved in their investigation, they would not be that happy about it either. And most men in the 1800s probably would have had similar thoughts because they were being raised in a very sexist society. But then on top of that, he also, in the beginning of the book, acknowledges that the NYPD is very corrupt, but he is willing to go along with it to advance his career. He even, at one point, thinks to himself that he would work harder on a murder case if the victim's family were rich and willing to pay him extra money. And later we find out why he feels that way, and I totally understood why he felt that way once I got the backstory. But at the time, without context, I was like, I hate this man. Like, he's a misogynist and he's a corrupt cop. Like, I don't like him. Like, I'm supposed to root for this guy as a romantic hero. Once we got the context, I understood him. I understood his psychology as a character, and I understood his choices. But it was rough going in the beginning. My other big complaint is I figured out a lot of the twists very early on in the book. I actually didn't get the murderer right. I thought another person was the murderer, but why the murder happened and the secrets that were revealed, I figured all of those out on page 45, which kind of sucked. It's not all bad, though. I do actually think the book left in an interesting place. I was able to sympathize with both Frank and Sarah by the end. I would like to give this series another try just to see where it would go. Like, how are Frank and Sarah's paths going to cross again? How will their relationship evolve? This series is meant to have a slow burn romance, and I believe it is a very slow burn. I heard somebody say in one of their historical mystery book recommendations videos that the romance really starts to heat up around book 15, which might be a little bit too much of a slow burn for me, but I'm interested in giving the series another try and seeing what's going to happen next. After that, I ended up reading a short story, which I don't really have anything to say about, to be honest. I read Galatea by Madeline Miller. I didn't end up rating this because it's only 50 pages long. I really didn't have any strong feelings or thoughts about it. This is a short story that is about the myth of Galatea and Pygmalion, where Galatea was a statue who the gods bring to life, and then Pygmalion, her sculptor, makes her his wife. So that was the inspiration for this short story. I liked it, but since it's so short, I don't really have anything to say about it. Like, it was good. I love Madeline Miller's writing, and I really want her to come out with a new book soon because I love Circe and I enjoyed The Song of Achilles. But yeah, like, no profound thoughts about this. It was so tiny, like, I don't have that many thoughts. It was good. Let's move on. I thought that I could finish this video by just giving some of my thoughts on The Count of Monte Cristo so far. This is a classic that I have been meaning to read for years and years. It's big, hence why I put it off for so long, but I have been reading it for a little over a month now. I am quite enjoying it. So this book is about Edmond Dantes, who is framed for being a Bonapartist traitor and sent to prison. Many years later, he has escaped prison and now returns to France under the alias the Count of Monte Cristo, conspiring to get revenge on the people who were responsible for his false imprisonment. I have wanted to read this book for many years because I heard so many rave reviews for it, and I love a revenge story. I just find those types of stories very interesting. Also, when I was in high school, I loved the ABC TV show Revenge, which is pitched as a modern-day Monte Cristo set in the Hamptons with a female main character. And I'm not sorry to say that I loved that TV show when I was in high school. My thoughts on this book so far are mostly positive. I'll need to see how it ends, obviously. And I think I'll need to take time and see how this book sticks with me, because right now I'm leaning towards giving it a 4, but I do feel like this is a book that I could look back on, say 2 or 3 years from now, and think of it as one of my all-time favorites. So I think I'll have to see how it resonates with me over time. The reason that I'm currently leaning towards a 4 is because I did think the beginning was a little slow. And I think there are parts of this book that honestly like could have been cut out. They didn't need to be here. But I've now gotten to a part of the book where things are getting really, really good. Like, they're dramatic, interesting, intense, and I'm very invested in the part of the book where I'm currently at. So I'm gonna finish this up and I will give you my final thoughts in my March wrap up. I am kind of upset because I love these penguin cloth-bound classics, but this one for the Count of Monte Cristo is coming off on my fingers. I don't know if it's just because it's several years old, because maybe since it's so long, I've been holding it a long time and my palms are sweating on it. I don't know, but like the design is literally coming off of my hands, which stinks. I don't like that. So that is it for my February reading wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a like. It really does help my channel so much. And subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you're still here, please leave me a comment down below. Why don't you comment what can I have you comment? How about a sad face emoji? Because I'm sad about my book coming off of my hands. I don't know. My social media links are in the description if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching this video today, you guys, and I hope you have a magnificent rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you in the next video.